Hello and welcome to our daily sketching routine. It's Tuesday, August the 26th, 2025, and today's topic, I'm going to call it sketching color thumbnails. But before we begin, welcome back if you're returning and welcome if you're new to the channel. I sketch and post every day and I use a timer to stay focused and to build a habit. I'll start a 10-minute timer. This is going to be a deep dive into painting and color work, specifically with certain paint markers and markers that I have, and I'll link to yesterday's video, which is the first one, and it has more details about the materials that I used. Since yesterday's video, I went ahead and created some swatches or compositions or like thumbnails of them. So you might want to, if you're following along or if you just kind of want to get some ideas. These were like the initial sort of swatches and then about twice as big. So I think it's good to play around with it and not commit to some big illustration. These were actually from reference, but I simplified the reference. Color, I mean, it adds another dimension to it, and then you add the like medium, then you want to get used to the medium. So this is basically acrylic, but like with alcohol marker. So it's like mixed medium. When you look at a landscape, there's going to be certain colors just from nature. That's like a color scheme. And then I kind of think about like the theory behind it. So you have like the blue and orange. Just see how that applies, because there's a lot that goes into it. Part of it is the light affects it. Part of it is the material. And there's just all these different variations. So for example, in this one, I used this pink color. Yeah, it's good to move the paper around, by the way. With painting, it's like the paint strokes matter. So I'll just do this. And also, it's important to let it dry. So one thing you can do is just put down a color. And you're basically sort of working, like seeing what the effects are, and then also coming up with some different techniques and recipes, if you will. So I'll let that kind of dry. So this one was just like the blue and then the green. So that's like a flat color. But then you can play around with adding the Sharpie, like the alcohol marker. This is like a light green color. So what I'm going to do is actually just go over like this whole green and then go into like that blue. And I find that for these markers, to get a smoother thing, you want to overlap them. So that's one thing you can do. And go over this part. And I'm not really sure because this dried overnight, so I'm not 100% sure. And then you have like a scrap piece of paper here. So this is mixed medium, but I find that when you do that, it can add some subtlety so that it's not just like the flat color. So that's like an experiment. And I mean, you can use like so many colors for that is what I'm saying. You can just keep playing around with this. So same with this. I was adding the white paint. So this is more like paint. Like the thing with painting is that, and there's so many approaches to it. So this one, I'm just laying down like the background color, kind of like this, and then putting the foreground on top of it. That's kind of a basic way of painting where you go from the background to the foreground. You don't have to go from dark to light. It just depends. You can play around with it. And that's the thing with paint, is that you can paint on top of it. So stuff like this actually has several layers to it. So this one had like the first layer of the basic color, and then I just went over it with that like alcohol marker just to play around with it. I mean, it'll look different. So same with this one. So I put like the white color on there. So I'll just use this. Now this one, I'm just going to go over this white area. Let's just see what that looks like. So like that's pretty strong. But let's just go ahead and do that because you can paint over it again. So you can see that there is a little bit of variation. So that's like the flat color of the purple, the acrylic paint. And then I went over it with like the white paint and then went over it with this Sharpie. So there is a little variation. So yeah, up here, let's go back to that one. So that's one thing like you can kind of practice, is just to I mean, if you want to do something like this. Now, you don't have to have these materials, but it's like the principle is still the same as far as layering it and color combos and like just doing the thumbnails and also working from the background and then to like the foreground. So like that's how you can get this kind of effect where the edges are cleaner. The palm leaves look like they're on top of the background, which is what you want. So here you might want to just go over like just to see, or you could go over it with like a different color. So this is like a dark color, like this blue. You could go over it with a lighter color, so like yellow, just to see how much coverage there is. It's good to kind of do it in layers, by the way, like let it dry and then go over it again, because it'll cover it more. So you might want to compare the yellow that's on top of the blue with yellow that's on top of like the white of the paper, or just like by itself. You can work on this for a little bit. So these are like autumn leaves that I saw, but let's add a little bit of variety to it. Yeah, so these are autumn leaves. They tend to look analogous as the color theory part of it. So for example, like the red leaves will have the orange and the yellow. You can take the orange paint. So this is just from reference, but like it could be in the back. So I'll just go like this, and these are leaves, and the paint strokes, like they matter. So that's the thing with painting, it's that the paint strokes matter. Now you could color it. The difference I think is kind of, you could have like an outline and color it in, and then that's more about just coloring in a drawing. But this one is painting, because the paint strokes, they layer and then you just kind of leave them. So they're kind of like this, like that's sort of like the color pattern. So you'll notice if you squint at it, it's kind of the same value, like the red and the orange, like if it were black and white, but because it's color, it does something, like it looks different. So that's the thing with color. Like one thing I noticed, for example, is that like the blue, like the dark blue, could be lighter, and I don't have like a lighter blue. So what I'm going to do is just cover it with the white, and it doesn't have to be all of it. And you might want to leave some of the original sort of blue color. Just do that and let it dry, and then maybe go over it with like a marker. Or one thing that could happen is, like if you're not sure, for example, you might want to just see. So I'll just put this blue and then just see what the effect is. Like if I go over that again with blue, it'll probably cover it. I have characters and everything, but sometimes it's good to just paint things that are a little bit simpler than, like, let's say like a knight kind of thing. But I mean, you could do that. So here, for example, you could just go in with a black marker. So this is like a black marker, but it's more opaque than, like, let's say just using a regular Sharpie. So yeah, this is from reference. It's like a picture of a knight that I found that I thought looked cool. I'm just gonna use these basic. So that's the thing with a thumbnail, is that it sort of forces you to look at the simplified things and just kind of look at the basic shapes. So this approach was, I laid down the black color and then I put the gray color on top of it just to get like the silhouette. And then the other thing also is, this is one layer of the black, so you can go over it again and it kind of like cross hatching in a way, just, or like a second layer, and refine it'll look darker, and it's a way of refining the figure. And then I would go back, like keep adding details. You'd be surprised at how much detail you can actually add to a thumbnail. So just to finish up, I'll cover this one with white. So that's what I mean. Like, you can just put down a few swatches and just experiment with what different colors will do. And also as a way to remind yourself of the effect. So this one I'm going to go over with, like, let's say I have a different marker. There's like an alcohol marker. So you can get some coverage that way. I wouldn't overwork it. And if it's not dark enough, you could try a different marker. Pick like a different marker. So that kind of darkened it up a little bit, but it's still lighter. If you want the branches to be a little bit smaller, I mean, I have, well, a few things. You can use a marker to kind of get these smaller branches. So for example, I've got like a brown Sharpie. So you could just make it taper out a little bit more. And that's why I'd start with drawing. Like, I do a lot of drawing, is because I feel like when you get to this point, you really don't want to mess around with it. Just kind of draw it. But like, it might be with paint, but you don't really want to be trying to figure out how to draw things. You just want to paint. So this is like one thing you can do, is just taper these out more. I mean, any of these subject matter, you could play around with them for a long time, and the effects and everything. So I keep saying just to wrap up, but then there's like more stuff to do. So I covered the blue with the white. Let's just see what it looks like if you go back over it. It probably got a little bit lighter, and if you keep doing that, like cover it with white and then cover it with blue again, it'll probably get a tiny bit lighter, I would think. But yeah, like, you could take something like this and maybe do like a bigger version. So this is about 4 times as big as that. This is part of the last week of the 4-week commitment to sketching. Tuesday is complete. So yeah, when I get all of the videos, I'll put them into one playlist for the commitment, so that you can either start or revisit, or just get all the videos, because they kind of go in an order a little bit, but they're also self-contained. That'll be it for today's daily sketching routine. I want to thank you for joining me, and if you enjoy these videos, please support the channel. I appreciate it, and until next time, keep on sketching.